everyone, welcome back to the floor of my bedroom. In today's video, I'm going to take you through all 9 things that I read in both March and April of this year. Starting off this video, just like last time, we're going to go through our plays first and then move on to our books. I have 3 plays and 6 books to talk about in this video. I did not read a single play in March, which is my fault, but that's okay. I read 3 in April. That sort of makes up for it. So starting off with the first play that I read, it was Betrayal by Harold Pinter. I read this for a play club that a couple of my friends are starting, and let me just tell you, I didn't really love this. I originally gave it a 3.75, but then when I got to the meeting, other people were talking about how they didn't really love it. They're like, yeah, no, this is a 1, this is a 2. I was like, I also feel the same. It's so freeing to go to book club meetings. It just emboldens me to go with my gut feeling. Sometimes I feel really bad about rating books, especially now that I'm sharing what I'm rating more often, but it's okay. If you don't like things, it's okay to rate them. It's okay to reflect that in your rating. So I did end up moving this down to a 2.5. The play in general follows 3 characters. There is a husband and wife. It is centered around the affair that the wife is having with a trusted friend / colleague of the husband. While this does sound juicy and enticing, what we actually got wasn't as engaging. It is told in reverse chronological order. So we start off with a scene like 2 years after the affair is blown over. From there, it goes years back, summers back into the past, and we kind of see how it originated. One of my main critiques with this play is that while it's interesting to go back in time, what ended up happening, we would see the setup for things that were going to happen. Then as soon as it would allude to some actual event or something juicy, the nature of the next scene being like 2 years or a year before that thing even happened, we never really got to see the consequences of these actions. There were moments when obviously the affair was revealed, but as a whole, I feel like the nature of the play, you just didn't get to see the consequences of a lot of what was happening. Therefore, the stakes didn't ever feel that high. I also never felt that much of a connection between the wife and the person she was having an affair with. I didn't feel like they actually really gave a shit about each other. Another thing about this play is that a lot of what we got in the scenes were the build up to really important moments, but the important moments were left out, if that makes any sense. We didn't get to see any actual tension or chemistry between these 2 people. We didn't get a sex scene, which is fine. It's not that there like needed to be one necessarily, but we didn't really get the tension. And while I was reading it, I didn't really understand the connection between these 2 characters and why they felt so strongly that they should be together, why they were even fighting for this. It's definitely a play that has a lot of subtext. One of my favorite ways to view plays is staged, getting the full effect. But as I was reading this, I was like, I don't even know if I would benefit that much more from actually having it be in front of me. I think I would understand a little bit more what was going on just because I could trust in the actors and the fact that they knew their own subtext and at least they knew what was going on. As somebody just reading it and getting the bare bones, the meat of the play, it was a whole lot of words. It was a whole lot of words for not a whole lot of meaning. And again, it's one of those things that just has a lot more subtext than it actually does with the dialogue. That's great, but I want the meat. I want subtext. I want things that are dripping in hidden meaning, and that could be fun to watch. But like as a general play, I don't understand how this would be very engaging. And I think the biggest draw to this would just be the stars that you cast in the role. I know that Charlie Cox and Tom Hiddleston play the 2 guys in this play. I feel like if you went to see that on Broadway, you were just going to see Tom Hiddleston and Charlie Cox. I think as a play, it doesn't necessarily hold up, and you would need some stars that were like incredibly engaging in order to sell it. Yeah, it was fine. It's a really interesting concept. It's a really interesting structure, but I think the actual execution just could have been a lot better maybe, and we could have just gotten a lot more. Anyway, 2.5 for me. Harold Pinter, thank you so much, but thank you next. It was just not that great for me. The second thing that we read was something that we read aloud with everybody, and this was Becky Shaw by Gina Gianfrido. Total 180. There could not have been a better play to read with 6 actors in a room. This was so engaging. First of all, it had everything that Betrayal was lacking. It had dialogue heavy scenes with like meaty conflict. The stakes were high. The character relationships were fleshed out. The banter was crazy. Max, we just like randomly assigned parts. So most of us, they were gender bent, and I played a character named Andrew. My friend Ashley played a character named Max. Our friend Quinn played the main female lead. It was just out of pocket. Max is a crazy character. He is unlikable as hell, but you love him and you root for him. Anyway, character dynamics and relationships were insane. There was so much happening all the time. The stakes were high. This was so good. It was so good, and I would give anything to see it staged. Reading it was so much fun. I gave it a 4.5. The last play that I have to talk about is none other than Fleabag by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. This was a part of my April TBR. I did, spoiler alert, only get 2 things checked off of my April TBR out of 6 that we pulled from my TBR prompt jar. Please do not clock me. I will try harder, maybe, maybe not, no promises. I ended up reading our special edition version of this that we got from the drama bookshop, and it was very interesting. I watched the show Fleabag before I read it, so I knew about it. I think I take to the show more than I do the play, but it was very interesting to read, obviously, like the original source material for it. The special edition that we have also has some interviews from the director and Phoebe Waller-Bridge talking about the process of Fleabag coming to light, where this character originated, and how Phoebe brought it to like a stand-up comedy night, essentially, did the first 12 minutes of it. The person who put that on was like, we have to explore this more. You have gold here. Then it went to the Fringe Festival, slowly came to New York. It was very interesting to hear the journey of the production as a whole and the character of Fleabag. A lot of the moments though that are in the show, they take obviously from the original play, and that's great. I loved reading those again. I just think Fleabag is such a genius character, so widely loved for how refreshing her voice is. An outspoken, very raunchy, sex-obsessed character who thinks revolting thoughts, almost wants to be the thing that people put her in a box to be. She's just incredibly interesting. If you know, you know. If you've seen the show, you probably love it. If you haven't, please go check it out. If not, go read the original script for it. I ended up giving it a 4.25. It does contain a lot of those original moments. I still loved it. I think it's genius, and I also love to hear about the progression of how it came to be. Now that we've got our 3 plays out of the way, we're gonna get into our 6 books. I ended up reading 3 books in the month of March. All of these are actually in my Reading a Book for Every Color of the Rainbow reading vlog. Part 1 of that has all of these in there. If you want to see all of my in-depth thoughts and opinions as I go along reading it, please go check that video out. But this is just gonna be rapid fire my rating and what I thought. The first book for March was Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. This book, on any given day of the week, I would rate this a 5-star. I'm gonna say that this was a 4.75. I don't know why I'm just not gonna go out of the gate and give this a 5, because I would recommend this until the day that I die, and I'm going to read it again. Eleanor Oliphant is one of my favorite characters that I have ever read. The intricacies of her brain, I related so much to her and the way that she views the world sometimes, and I think that everybody could relate to her in some way or another. I would definitely check the trigger warnings for this book. She definitely goes through a lot in her past. Neglect and abuse are just 2 of the many things that she deals with. And this book definitely takes the stance that those events that have transpired to her are the reason she is the way that she is and the reason she views the world the way that she does. She is a socially awkward, very blunt, deeply feeling, but deeply removed individual from society. She doesn't have a lot of friends. She's an introvert. She spends all of her time at home, and the author of this book actually said that she was inspired to write this after reading an article about somebody who did not talk from the moment that she came home from work on Friday till the moment that she went back to work on Monday. So what isolation and loneliness can look like in a person and the way that they can shape even a young person's lives. She said that she specifically wanted to explore how that would affect somebody middle-aged. The relationship slash really just friendship that we get between her and our male main character in this, Raymond, is so pure. The way that he shows up for her, helps to break her out of her shell, give her that support, is just insane. Like I love the 2 of them, and I love what they were able to do for each other. Honestly, if I talk too much about it, I'm going to cry. I love her so much. I laughed, I cried, I feel so much for her journey, the ways that she put herself out there, the ways that she learned to overcome and correct the things that she thought were inevitable based on her past. This book is very much slice of life in the way that we just follow Eleanor throughout life, see her having interactions with new people, doing new things, and just kind of like how that changes her, how she interacts with humanity around her in the world. It's a girl who we learn a lot about her and her past, the things that she struggles with. Then she happens to kind of meet and become close to this person who also works with her, just kind of how their relationship and friendship spirals and the ways that it changes Eleanor and the ways that just the people in this book change Eleanor. That's the one thing I want to say, is that there is so much self-growth in this book that doesn't have to do with the male main character or anybody else. The only thing that I didn't like totally love is it did feel a little bit slow at times. There's one plot line in here specifically about this like musician that she's kind of obsessed with. We kind of go back to that a lot, and I just didn't really know why. Those parts felt a little bit slow to me. They also didn't become very consequential for the story as a whole, so I didn't really love that, but really that doesn't even matter to me because the heart packed in these pages is insane. This is great. This is a 4.75, but honestly I hold it in the tier of like 5 stars for me. The second book that I read in March was Just Last Night by Vari McFarlane. I loved this one. This is a second chance romance book. I did not know that going into it. I kind of knew vaguely it was a second chance romance, and that's kind of what lowered my rating a little bit. It ended up being a second chance romance, not in the way that I was expecting, which is fine. I gave this a 4.25 stars. This has crack laced within the pages of the first half of this book. This is basically about our main character, Evelyn. She has a friend group that she has been very close with ever since she was a teenager. They're now all in their middle to late 30s. One of them unexpectedly passes away, and it is kind of how Evelyn grapples with that, how the friendship dynamics change through that, the way that her world in the course of a single evening has been completely upended. Everything to do with the passing of that friend, the exploration of grief, the commentary about how humans just like can't understand death. They can't understand this abrupt change in their world and this intrusion and the way that it just leaches into your being. Like I loved it. Also just the visceral thoughts, feelings, reactions that you get to even like the one that got away, one of the people that she's friends with in this group of friends she has been in love with for a very long time. There is just so much humanity that is explored in this in the first half of the book that is like crack. I love her writing style. I think it's beautiful, and I'm definitely on board to read everything else that this author puts out. When this in the second half kind of changed into that stereotypical romance route, I just wasn't as connected. I'm happy for the characters. I'm glad that they found a little bit of peace. Both our main character, obviously, this is one of her friends that tragically passed away, and then the male love interest in this is somebody who was also close to the person that passed away. That was great. I'm not mad about any of the information that we got in the second half. I just think that the first half started so strong that when it kind of started going towards a stereotypical romance route in the second half, I just wasn't as interested because it was like, no. I think I was more to the impression, especially the way that it was reading to start off, that it was going to be more like literary fiction, slice of life. And I definitely think it does trend more towards that than it does romance. I just think that like the way that they got to know each other, these two characters, was something that I feel like was designed specifically by the author to have to get them in forced proximity so they could learn about each other. Like that's what I meant by stereotypical, is it kind of just like something happened that had very little consequences in the end, but they went through with it. Because it had no consequences, it was really just about like the conversations they had when they were together in forced proximity. And I just didn't end up loving it as much as I think I could have because I was a little bit confused on what the premise of the book was, which is not anyone's fault at all. It's a 4.25 stars. If you want to hear a second chance, learn about an FMC dealing with the grief of somebody that she's closest to, learning to move on, knowing what we know with the little time we have left, and really being selective about the people that we choose to spend it with, knowing that life is precious. What you choose to do with it is what makes it. If that makes any sense. The last book that I ended up reading in March was Promise Me Sunshine by Cara Bastone. This is her newest romance release. This is also about our FMC dealing with the grief of somebody that she is closest to. The premise of this book essentially is that she gets a babysitting gig. She is babysitting for this child named Ainsley. When she shows up at this house, she meets her grumpy uncle Miles, who we slowly learn has dealt with grief in his past before, takes it upon himself to say, I will help you through grieving your friend, help you accomplish the things that you have set out to do on this live again list, which is something that our main character came up with her best friend as a way to sort of carry on after she passes, to still experience the things that they've always wanted to do together. Essentially, he says, I'll help you complete that list and I'll help you go through the grieving process in exchange for your help with my niece. Basically, he's not very good with kids. He's not very conversational. He's a very brooding, mysterious, grumpy male main character, but it's because he's gone through so much in his past. He's like dying for this connection with his niece and her mom, which is his sister. Obviously. I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. What I'm going to say about this is that he is an acts of service girly to his core. I have done so many like mini reviews about this, especially in the video when I gave my full thoughts and opinions. I said that a million times, so I'm sorry. That's the last time I'm going to say that about Miles, but that's what Miles is. That is who Miles is. If you are somebody who wants to read about a man who will do anything and everything for you to make sure that you are okay and show up for you silently in little ways that you didn't even know you needed, but can see you when you're at your worst and say, hey, I know how to fix that and I will be here for you, ride or die until the end, even when you relapse. Like, I don't care, but I'm going to be here and you can't push me away. There's nothing that you could do that would scare me off. I've seen the worst and I want to be there for you at your worst. Hey, it's that guy. It's that guy, and that's all I'm gonna say. She is a little bit quirky. She's a little bit all over the place, very sporadic. Things that I didn't really love about this book are sometimes the relationship bordered on a little bit childish for me. I want to clarify that it's not because she's grieving that gives me these like, please take care of me vibes. There were generally just some things in there like flirting, platonic even. Some of their interactions, she was acting a bit childish, and the way that he had to show up for her was giving more I'm a parental figure than it is I want to be your boyfriend way. because she's so outspoken. She also was very outwardly flirty towards him for a lot of the book as well. So when it switched from friendship to more of a romantic relationship dynamic, it just didn't feel as rewarding. The progression of the relationship was a little bit awkward for me throughout the book. My favorite thing about this book is just the aspect of letting someone see your worst and the type of bonding that can come from that. There's just not a closer way to get to know somebody sticking by them through that, and that is exactly what happens with the two of them in this book. So yeah, I really enjoyed this. I definitely would recommend it. These are also now 2 of 3 books that I ended up reading in this 2-month span that deal with our FMC going through the grief of someone that she's closest to. So that has been like the major theme for the books that I've been reading lately, especially in romances. The next book that we're going to talk about that I think I started reading at the end of March but then finished in early April, Hera by Jennifer Saint. This is a feminist retelling of a classic Greek mythology story. I ended up giving this a 3.5 stars. I think I wanted to rate this higher. I love Greek mythology, and I think that if you do too, you will also enjoy this. Jennifer Saint's writing is very atmospheric, very eloquent. The only way I can describe it is just very like luxurious writing. I love it, but I think the writing was some of the downfall. We got a lot of atmospheric writing in regards to literally like the earth, the environment, everything going on around her. Sometimes I think it focused a little bit more on that than it did between character relationships. There's a lot of things that Hera did to stay mentally ahead. This is essentially about Hera, who is being consistently wronged by a man. We all know him, the big guy upstairs, Zeus. Zeus and Hera essentially overthrew their father when they were younger. Everything is the way that it is now because of the fact that they defeated their father Kronos and kind of brought back all of their siblings. This is basically the story of how Zeus decided to put himself in power. Hera was given absolutely nothing. Hera was completely blindsided by this. One day, Zeus forcefully, let's just call it what it is, he assaults her, leaves her with child. She's in this very binding predicament where she is forced to be the goddess of marriage. She now is living a life that she did not envision for herself. She is trapped in this role of being the perfect wife, the perfect mother. Things that I didn't really love about this book, there's a lot of trying and failing in this. Hera is, I will give it to her, she's persistent as hell. She's always going to do something to try to tip the scales back into her favor, but Zeus kind of just squashes every single plan before it even really gets in motion. Or sometimes if it does get in motion, doesn't work out in her favor. It did end up feeling very depressing to read about because it just became so many instances of a woman being wronged by a man. I love just the general premise of hearing about gods and goddesses. Every single person that roams the earth makes an appearance in this book, which is fun to read about and to see how that lore all connects and everything. I wish that we focused a little bit more on Hera's mental strength, not so much the plans that she was trying to put in place, even though that took a lot of mental calculation as well. There are certain things that she was able to call out about the people around her and their behaviors and kind of get into their mind and the inner workings of what they were thinking at any given moment in time. I wish this book had a lot more about relationship dynamics and not necessarily like the politics of everything that was going on, even though the politics were the result of these relationship dynamics. I definitely will continue to pick up her books. I just think that I was hoping to like this a little bit more than I did. It's definitely a strong female main character, but she is put through the ringer. Just know that going into it. Moving on to the last 2 books that we're going to talk about, I read The Ballad of Songbird and Snakes. This is going to be in a video that I have coming up soon, which is part 2 of the Reading a Book for Every Color of the Rainbow reading vlog. I loved it. I'm kind of debating. Do I give it 5 stars? I don't think so. I definitely think it's a 4.75 for me because it did feel very slow at times, but was always engaging. I love that book. I think it just took me by surprise in a way that I wasn't expecting it. The brutality, the violence contained within that book just felt crazy to me. And I don't know if it's because it's been like 2 years since I read the original trilogy, and I've also seen the movies way more than I have, obviously, been acquainted with the books. I don't know if the type of violence in the Hunger Games, I was just desensitized to it, but now that I was reading a story that I knew nothing about, picking up for the first time, like I was immersed into it. I didn't know what I was going to expect. It turned out to be insane. The amount of times that my jaw dropped reading that book, and I was originally not going to read it. I had a friend convince me to read this before I got into Sunrise on the Reaping because she was like, at least make sure you see the movie. Like, it's pretty interesting as far as lore is concerned. So I looked at my library, I saw they had a copy, and I was like, okay, fine. I don't necessarily want to buy it because I don't really care about President Snow in that way. I don't want to find room for it on the one bookshelf that I have in my apartment. I'll just check it out, read it, whatever. I loved it. I didn't think I was going to care about President Snow. I think the thing that's so impressive about that book, we know how he ends up. We know that he is an awful person. And there are so many times even in that book when we learn that he is an awful person and that he thinks awful things and betrays the people that he's closest to. Like, it happens all the time. But the way that she crafted the story, you still rooted for him because it shows his general battle with good and evil all of the time. Like, he is not wholly good, he is not wholly bad. Well, obviously he's not wholly good, but you know what I mean? He's not wholly bad either. The ways that he is deceitful, the ways that he is cunning and calculated, all have to do with his upbringing and the things that he's gone through. No justice for President Snow because we know that he's an awful person, but reading it, you're so intrigued. I don't know. I thought it was so masterful. Making his villain origin story as intriguing as it was when we know that he's dislikable, we hate him. And getting us to feel for Lucy Gray. Lucy Gray, that is an insane part. I loved her tenacity. She's so fiery. The only thing that I didn't love as much, like I said, is the events transpired very slowly, and for most of the book they were very engaging. There was only a section in the third part that I was very like, wow, this is really dragging. Once we kind of get the aftermath of the games portion, I just didn't really care as much. Felt as slow as it kind of was up until that point. Anything set in the Hunger Games world I care about so deeply, and there's nothing, literally nothing that I could read set in that world that I wouldn't care about. Yep, 4.75, if not 4.8, 4.9. Finally, the very last book that I read in the month of April was Passion Project by London Sperry. This is a debut romance release. This is the only other book that I successfully completed off of my April TBR. I really enjoyed this. I gave this a 4.25 stars. I'm gonna have a reading vlog come out where I go through my thoughts and opinions on this in real time. You can see in that I stayed up till 3 a.m. to finish this. I giggled, I cried profusely. It was a very slow start for me. I didn't really get super invested until page 115, 120. One of my main critiques for this book is I wish we learned a lot more about our male main character. He is such a good blueprint of a man that I wanted to know that much more about him. Like, I loved him. Therefore, I wish we got more, but it didn't really hinder the connection that we got between the two of them. I don't think that we got too much banter and tension from them. We did get some scenes once it was kind of like out in the open that they had some budding feelings for each other. The build up to that initial moment when it was revealed they kind of had feelings for each other, I didn't really get that. They were definitely friends, which is great, but I didn't really understand the friends to lovers vibe. Where they ended up though, I think was great. One of the things I really liked about this is they went through multiple conflicts in this book. There wasn't like a big slow burn that got to the juicy parts, third act conflict, and then everything resolved in the end. So I thought it kind of mirrored a natural progression of like a friendship to relationship. I thought that was a very realistic depiction of things that would happen in real life, how life is messy and there's always something that you're gonna have to go through and work towards when you are falling for somebody. The whole premise of this book is that she is in New York City, but she doesn't even know why she's in New York City still. She doesn't really want to be there. Now that she's here, now that she is grieving the death of somebody that she was extremely close to, I'm just gonna say it. It's not like a spoiler, but if you just don't want to know and you'd rather find out in real time who it is that she's grieving and how he's related to her, skip right now, but it's her previous boyfriend. My favorite part about this is the depiction of like anxiety and depression and self-sabotage, the way that we can perpetuate our own cycles of hurt. Sometimes it feels safer to just stay in this bubble of hurt that she at least knows than try to branch out to something that could have a very high reward at the end, but also could destroy her even further. It's like she's so fragile, she'd rather just not even try. She gets set up on a first date with our male main character, Henry. She doesn't even go on that date. She completely stands him up because she gets overtaken by anxiety on the way to the date, like before she even gets there. We find out a little bit how they reconnect. He eventually says that he's gonna help her find her passion in life by taking her on a new activity every single Saturday in New York City so she can find what it is that makes life worth living again. It's not even about the actual premise of this book, going to these different activities, even though they do a lot of very cool things around New York City. If you're somebody who's ever been fascinated with the city, I think you'll love reading this because it has such an accurate depiction of what city life is like here. I think the thing about this book is that I related so much to Bennett in so many ways that sometimes I was like in the trenches with her and I didn't really like reading about that, but that's a me thing. That's not everybody thing that'll probably happen when you read this, so I would definitely still recommend it. I also absolutely adore how there's kind of like two love stories in one in this. It becomes a really big question of like love after loss. How do you move on when you've already had one of the greatest loves of your life? Can somebody have more than one love in their life? What that feels like, how it feels like a betrayal to start to get feelings for somebody again, start to even just notice people again. There's so much heart packed into these pages that definitely got me. Like I said, I was up until 3 a.m. crying, giggling. Some things in the third act conflict, even though it's not a stereotypical third act conflict, like I said, did piss me off. I don't like the way that our main character acted, and I think it was very unfair, but I also like understand where she was coming from. Still don't really love it though, but where we ended up was very great. I thought it was just like a very cute, fun story, but like I said, that has an emotional punch. Especially as a debut novel, this is insane, and I'm absolutely on board with reading whatever London Sperry has next. I think her voice is very unique and refreshing, so I'm very excited to see what else they have coming coming out. That is officially it. We have made it through all of the 9 reads that I did in March and April of this year. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Be sure to check out my Reading a Book for Every Color of the Rainbow reading vlogs, both part 1 and part 2. Stay tuned for more. I hope you guys have a very good rest of your day, and I will talk to you later. Bye!